We know there's but one presence here, God, infinite good, and each of us is that good. I am always aware of my highest good. I am always aware of my highest good. I'll say it again. I am always aware of my highest good. Now we live in the consciousness that good is everywhere present. And good is where we are, and we are where good is. And therefore, instantly, in every situation, we know there's only good, because we do believe that God is all in all, that God is the only power. And since we know that this is the truth of being, then it becomes our experience at all times, our highest good, our greatest good, that it comes in ease and joy and love and perfect understanding, that our good is free from confusion. Our good is the consciousness of wholeness, the consciousness of completeness, that right now we are aware of our highest good, and this abides with us throughout every day this week, in every experience. I am always aware of my highest good. I am is the consciousness of our spiritual being. When we think in terms of I am, we have identified ourselves with infinite God, and we've opened the channels of our being so that all of our awareness of infinite God might find its flow out into our world of expression. I can is the keynote of action. And when we are in the I can consciousness, or then we are in the consciousness of action. And I do is the point at which I can, proves itself by manifesting in the world around it. I think those three statements, I am, I can, and I do, they're very potent. They have a tremendous import in what they do to our consciousness and how they open our awareness of being. I particularly want to speak this morning on the I can consciousness. We've probably seen many instances of the I can't consciousness. We see people that they just don't believe in themselves, and they don't put any effort forth because they're dominated by a subconscious belief that I can't. And so no matter how great their talents or what their talents might be, they live in that consciousness of I can't. And that's the thing that motivates you. There's a man who was a bricklayer, and he was working for a construction company, and his brother was a very famous violinist. And one day the head of the construction manager project said, "You must be very proud to have such a renowned brother." And then all of a sudden he felt, well, he was hurting this man's feelings. And so he said, "Well, you know, all the members of a family do not have talent." And the bricklayer said, "You're so right. Just look at my brother. He doesn't know a thing about bricks. And he couldn't lay a brick if he tried to, and he wouldn't be able to build a brick house. It's lucky for him he's got money enough to pay somebody to do it." We have different points of view, don't we? But each one must be based upon an inner awareness and what we are, and that we do have a pride in what we're doing, and that we have a capacity to bring through. I feel that most people who are suffering from I can't, well, they're negating themselves, and they're not bringing themselves out into the fore and recognizing that they have something to contribute to life. They have talents. And it's an equal talent to lay bricks or to play a violin or play a piano or whatnot. So it depends entirely upon the consciousness of the individual. But we have to come back to the realization that we're all thinking, creating centers of infinite mind. We're thinking, creative centers of infinite mind. Now, you're not the channel of infinite mind. You're infinite mind knowing itself. You're not the reflection of God. You're the consciousness of God expressing as you. You're the awareness that your whole being is this infinite mind at the point of expression that is named you. And it's very important for each of us to recognize that point named you, that we recognize we have something very valuable to contribute, and we're proving our identity in the infinite mind, and we're also proving the identity of the infinite mind itself as we keep in that conscious awareness. But let's go back to the idea of I can. Now, we start, of course, with the idea I am, that you have an awareness that you're the infinite mind itself knowing itself. But the infinite mind now has to move into action. And so now it comes into the I can. I can what? Doesn't make any difference what. Right now, it's I can. And if you just say that to yourself, I can. Now, I might challenge you and say, I can what? And you may say, well, that's up to me. I know what I want to do. I know what I want to do in my own consciousness, and that's fine. I'm not trying to pry it out of you. But I'm trying to make you realize that first, there has to be the feeling you can. All right? You can do anything that comes along. Yes. You can do anything that comes along. All right? But some people can't do anything that comes along. And something comes along and say, well, now let's think it over. Now let's take it cool. Let's play it cool. Let's go slow on it. Let's think it over. Well, of course, that means they're not accepting it yet, doesn't it? And since they're not accepting it, they don't want to plunge in, not knowing what it is they're getting into. But I believe in creating the I can atmosphere, attitude, that you know you're instantly ready. And you're ready for something good. You're ready for something important. And the fact that you're instantly ready brings into your experience those things that give you the opportunity to prove what you are. Emerson said, do the thing and you have the power. And that's true. We do the thing, then we have the power because we link up with the power of the idea. And it becomes a part of what we are. We bring that idea out into its perfect manifestation and make it a part of what we are in everything that we do. But when we're in the I can consciousness, all right, then we're instantly ready for the good that comes to us. We don't know where the good's coming from. I think it's pathetic when we lose our vision to such an extent that we don't know where our good is coming from, or we don't know that our good is coming. It's not so important to know where your good is coming from, but it's important to know that your good comes. And your good comes because you're ready for your good, and you're ready to do the thing that you really want to do. You can be what you want to be. You can be what you want to be. Now, you've got to lay that law down to yourself and let yourself know that you can be, and you're in that consciousness of can, and you know then that you can bring that through. Well, if we're lacking that, it's probably because we've got a feeling that we're not ready. That we're not ready. We're not ready. And we can't get where we want to go from where we are. And that reminds me of a story of President Lyndon Johnson. When he would, some test didn't get done, and the men brought excuses before him as to why it couldn't be done. He said, that reminds me of a story. There's a man down in Texas, and this man was trying to go to the courthouse. And so he asked the village drunk who was leaning against his car how to get to the courthouse. And the man says, well, you go down this way to the river, and then you cross the river, and then you make a right turn, and then you go till you come to a cedar tree. And no, you can't get to the courthouse that way. Well, no, you go this other way. and you go down up the river, and you cross the bridge, and then when you come to Cedar Grove, no, you can't get to the courthouse that way. And finally, he made several other suggestions. Finally, he looked the man in the street and said, "I'll tell you something, mister. You can't get to the courthouse from here." And I think the point in that story is in the reverse action, that you get anywhere, you can go anywhere you want to go from where you are. And you have to go from where you are. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, someone said. And you have to know that where you are, you're lined up with where you want to be. That's right. Where you are now, you're lined up with where you want to be. But if you're filled with doubt and filled with uncertainty and say, well, I can't do this because I don't have to do, can't do that, and I can't do something else. I've got a wonderful business idea, but I don't have the capital to put it through, so I'll have to abandon it. Come back to your principle. When you get the idea, within that idea is the power of its fulfillment. But you have to believe in that. And you have to know the power is there and see the power and extract that power. Bring that power out into your experience. So there, now you've got a basis. When you say, I can, you know you've developed certain skills. You've developed certain talent. You've developed certain ideas in your mind. And so you're going to take those ideas and think in terms of those ideas. But if we let the other idea, I can't, come in, we find it takes all the starch out of us. And we sit around and we get depressed. We don't get anywhere. And so we have to look at ourselves in the face. Why do I think I can't? Why do I think I can't? Well, Jesus said, it's done unto you according to your belief. Dr. Holmes expressed the same idea. It's your belief that creates the condition. And I'll tell you the same thing. That is your belief that creates your ability to do. And so if you're lacking in the can department, get hold of your belief and commence to use the belief that you can do what you want to do. You can do what you want to do. I think it's tragic the way people get beaten down by ideas of negation. That sometimes our even best friends discourage us in what we want to do. And so I think we have to look that into the face and knock it completely out of consciousness. When somebody says you can't do that, well, if you know them well enough, you could say, you mean you can't do it. If you do not know them well enough and you think it'd be safer, say it to yourself. He doesn't think he can do it. But make up your mind that nobody can place a can or cannot on you. That you're the complete law unto your expression. And you decide what you're going to do. And your belief is that which makes that decision. And as you work on your belief and build up your belief within yourself and make it a definite part of what you are, then you bring that into your consciousness. And then you come back into a sense of power. Now you know that you can. Well, maybe there are lots of things that we can't do right now. But when we have the I can consciousness, we're going to learn to do them. We're going to learn to do them. That's where so many people make a mistake. We say it's true in the absolute, and that's right, it is true in the absolute. And within yourself, there must be the perfect idea of the completed idea that you're working on. That's a complete thing in your consciousness. But the outer expression of that may require some training on your part. It may require that you adjust things in your own mind. Were you born with the ability to drive an automobile? Well, but you had to learn the technique, didn't you? And you had to learn how to handle the gears, how to handle the brake, and so forth and so on. That's not detrimental to your consciousness to say that you have to learn something. I think it's one of the greatest compliments we can pay a person is to say that person is learning. Because we are implying that person is growing. That person is not standing still. That person is expanding his thought to get out into a larger awareness of what he is. And I think it's wonderful to tackle something that's unfamiliar to you. If you play the piano, tackle a piece that's over your head. Yes, you don't have to play it before an audience, but play it before yourself and work it out in your own mind and get it worked out so that you can make a passable performance of it. But it must satisfy you, and you must bring yourself back to that. I don't think we can take science of mind for granted. We say, yes, the perfect you is there. That's right, the perfect you is there. But we have to practice on that perfect you. And we have to practice in bringing that perfect you out. And how do we practice? By our conscious thought and by the way in which we handle the thoughts that come to us. So that if somebody implies we haven't got the ability, all right, we reverse that thought. Now, it's none of their business. You can say it that way if you want to. You can say it's none of your business to yourself. If you dare say it publicly, fine. Sometimes people need to be spoken to in public. That's just the way in which you have to work. You have to decide that in your own mind. But the important thing is what you're doing to yourself, not what you're doing to somebody else. That you make yourself know you're not taking anybody's negative about you, because you're the positive expression of infinite knowing. And therefore you know that which you are, and you establish that which you are. Well, we take up anything that we want to do. We commence to work on it. Now, science of mind. Yes, I don't believe there's any limit to science of mind. I don't believe there's any limit because I know there's no limit to principle. And therefore, if there's no limit to principle, then there's no limit to your ability and my ability to demonstrate that principle. But we have to learn how, don't we? And there are techniques of science of mind just exactly like the techniques of music. Just like it is quite a study to undertake law or medicine, or any thing that a person is going to study, architecture, anything, is quite an art to the study of it. But back of it, before you start the study, there is an absolute idea of the thing. And as you keep in that absolute idea of the thing, then all of your practice becomes easy, because it's based on the root idea, and it maintains its connection with that root idea, so the power of that root idea is flowing into what you do. And then we are learning, and we're learning, and we're learning. Well, then I reverse the thought. Somebody makes a thought about finances. You can't depend on money nowadays. Well, whoever depended on money? You depend on principle. And principle supplies the money. And when you know you depend on principle, then you think into principle the money that you want. But you have to believe it. Now, you figure a certain sum for yourself, and you say, well, you don't believe it. That's right. Go back to what I said about the piano. Now, you know it's a principle, all right? If anybody can demonstrate it, all people can demonstrate it. And since he has the principle then of supply and money, then you can believe in it, and you believe in it by controlling your belief and regulating your belief. That you think in terms of prosperous being, you look in terms of prosperous expression, and in like manner, you abstain from all sense of poverty, all sense of limitation, and all sense of lack. Now, you cannot prosper if you're going to fill your mind full of lack. But if your mind is filled with lack, get rid of it. That's a wonderful thing. So that anything we don't like, we can change, you see. And that's what we are recognizing. So we change the things we don't want because we're creating what we do want. We're creating what we do want. And that's the way in which the infinite mind works. God doesn't demonstrate through us according to what we don't want. God demonstrates through us according to what we do want. It's our consciousness that that causes us to bring through that perfect manifestation. A 5-year-old boy wrote a letter to God. And one of the postal employees picked the letter up and sort of intrigued him, and so he didn't know what to do with it. So he opened it. And the letter said, Dear God, my name is Jimmy. I'm 5 years old. My father's dead. My mother's having a hard time bringing up my sister and me. Please send us $500. Well, the postal authority was very moved by it. And he showed it to the other employees, and they each pitched in a few dollars. They raised $300. And they sent it to the boy's family. 2 weeks later, they got another letter from the little boy. Oh, you know it, do you? And he said, Dear God, thank you for the money, but may I ask one favor? Next time, will you please send the money directly to us, because the post office deducts $200. Well, you see, if you ask for 500, don't be content with 300. You're dealing with the law, and you have to know you're dealing with that law. But if we don't make our demonstration fully, then we come back to the idea of establishing our belief. And we create our belief in it, our belief that we can demonstrate what we want. We can be what we want to be, because that's the nature of life itself. And then as we come back into this realization that we're bringing through the perfect idea and we're giving it form in what we do, our confidence grows. And each demonstration makes you stronger in the next demonstration. That's the way practice improves us, you see. And every time you make a demonstration, then you've proven the principle. You're practicing your technique, and you're mastering your technique. Now, as you keep going, you're going to find your demonstrations will come more quickly. But your demonstrations have to be based on the positive, constructive idea. Don't let any negative concept in. If you don't make 100% demonstration, don't talk about it and be proud of it, but recognize that you can make the 100% demonstration and work on it. Practice on it. If we don't do it the first time, fine. You know, you can be playing a performance and strike some wrong notes in your performance, and you get terribly embarrassed. But sometimes if we get embarrassed enough, we learn to practice enough and take more pains so we won't make those mistakes. And when we demonstrate things that are not perfect for us, then we recognize we need to practice more. Get back to principle. Get back to principle. You cannot take no for an answer when it comes to God manifesting. You're dealing with a power that's not going to let you down. You're dealing with a power that will fulfill itself. And you can demonstrate it. And you can be what you want to be in your experience. And so we can keep coming back to that recognition that we're establishing what we want to be. And establishing what we want to be, we're building it up then as a part of our consciousness. When we work on this I can, we'll make better progress if we recognize that I can is a principle of action. I can is a principle of action. Now, it's not action itself, but it's the mental vision of action. When I say I can, I'm not doing anything. When I say I can, I'm getting the creative mental vision of action. And when I say I can, I am speaking my creative ability into that infinite mind so that I'm establishing my pattern in mind. We always want to establish the pattern first. Remember, everything proceeds from mind. Everything proceeds from mind. Nothing can happen in our world except it first happened in mind. All right? Now then we get this equivalent of I can. And we get the consciousness of it. Now we see ourselves doing that. You see yourself doing something that you always thought was impossible to do. And you see yourself doing something that your family always said you couldn't do. Now then, you keep building it up in your consciousness. But as you build it up in your consciousness, declare you're ready for it. You're ready to be this. You're ready to do what you can. You're ready to do what you can. You've now demonstrated that you can, and you're ready to do it. Now you're going to bring that through into its perfect manifestation. The I can is going to be lost if you don't follow it up with the I do. Because if you can have all these things, wonderful ideas that you can do, and you just work them out in a dream state, an air castle process, and never do anything, never get out of your chair. But when you recognize that I can, explodes into I do. And when you get the full conviction, I can, there's an explosion in your consciousness. Something breaks, something springs loose, and you find all of a sudden, you're in a new awareness of life, a new sense of wholeness, a new sense of who you are. Then you bring that out in what you do. But this is a repeat process. And almost everything that you do demands the same kind of I can experience. That you fulfill one thing, all right, then you must move to another. You must fulfill one thing, you must move to another. I think you must remember there's no place just to become an old man or an old lady and sit around and do nothing. And there's no place to be a young person not knowing what to do, not knowing where to go, and getting into all kinds of difficulties. There's no reason for a person to say, well, I can't make any more money, and so I've got to get along with what I have. Those are negative ideas that we push out of consciousness. There was nothing that used to gall me more than somebody wrote a book on grow old graciously. And who in the sun wants to write a book on growing old graciously? And in the first place, there's no graciousness about it. And the second place, there's no growing old about it. All right? Can you stay young? Can you keep in a sense of maturity? Of course you can. Can you lick those things that seem to be encroaching on your time and on your body? Of course you can. But you have to practice it. You have to keep coming back to the idea. And you have to know that this is the thing that you're working on. And it's your consciousness. And you're working on your consciousness. And you have to know there's no dissatisfaction with anybody around you. You're in complete control of who you are. And therefore you bring that forth into your perfect expression. Humphrey Bogart and I've forgotten the name. They were having dinner one time, and Harry Cohen, the president of the Columbia Pictures, came in, and he walked over to Humphrey, and he whispered in his ear something, and all of a sudden he beamed, his face beamed, and so Humphrey turned to Miss Bacall and said, well, our picture's a hit. And she said, how do you know? How can you tell? He said, well, because Harry Cohen said, our picture is a hit. And if it wasn't a hit, he would have said, your picture is a flop. And you know, we see that sometimes in family relationship. If the boy does something that isn't so good, mother says, your son is misbehaving. But when the boy makes $1 million, our son. It's all depending on what you're claiming. So we come back to that realization that we're building up our ability, and we know that we don't desert that ability, and we keep establishing it as a part of our consciousness, as a part of what we are. Then as we get it consciously in our own mind, then we bring it forth into our perfect experience. Now let this idea, just practice it over and over again. I can. And when you get up in the morning, or before you get out of bed, commence to say, I can. Now you don't have to worry about what you can do, because there are other ideas in your mind of things that you would like to do. Now when you get the I can consciousness, it sort of connects with the things that you can do and the things that you're ready to do. The I can consciousness connects with the things that you are able to do, that you're ready to do, with the talents that you've developed. It immediately brings those into the fore and brings them out into form, but it still continues to work. So that the consciousness of I can is building up over and over again in all kinds of instances, but you're holding it in your consciousness that it's your law and it's what you are, and you live in that conviction. Yes, the I am of you is God as you. The I can of you is God as you in action. The I do is the recognition that your world is now taking on the form of your thought. And you can be, right now, the perfect self that you are. How in the consciousness that knows it can. And since we know we can, and we prove ourselves. That we're not lifting ourselves by the bootstraps, we're just recognizing the true nature of our being. That the true nature of our being is that we can be what we visualize. We can be what we think we want to be. We can be that which we want to express in everything that we do. We're living in that conscious awareness of wholeness, of completeness, of infinite being. Now we include in this consciousness this morning all of our absent members. We include Dr. Domenic Polifrone, that the spirit in him is having its wonderful rejoicing, wonderful experience. Now we include any person, any friend of ours or relative that we want to bring into this healing consciousness. We affirm healing for this person, our person. We affirm perfect healing. Spirit knows their need, and Spirit fulfills their need for their consciousness of wholeness, perfect being. Now we give thanks for the outpouring of Spirit in us this morning, and that the gift of God in us, the Spirit, has been stirred, and that we have come this morning into a new realization of who we are, a new concept of our wholeness, of our completeness, a new recognition that we're important to life. Life is important to us. We're part of its infinite being. And we rejoice that we know that we can, and rejoice that we can. For as the rain cometh down and the snow from heaven, and returneth not thither, but watereth the earth, and maketh it bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower, bread to the eater. So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that whereunto it is sent, and it shall prosper in the thing whereunto it is sent.